Right, good morning. It's the 18th day of July and welcome to Morning Brief here on Arise. With me, Deborah Twumasi. We are broadcasting live from our studio at Lachado behind the Trade Fair Center, Accra. Coming up, the Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Art, Madam Elizabeth Ofosu-Ejari, entreats the youth to take active part in this year's celebration of Emancipation Day. Also, personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service advised to be credible in the recruitment of trainees. And from the international front in Turkey, 6,000 people have been arrested following a coup attempt over the weekend. Now the stories in details. In our very first story, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Creative Art has launched this year's Emancipation Day celebration in the Central Regional Capital, Cape Coast, with the main theme as Emancipation, Our Heritage, Our Strength. The Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Art, Madam Elizabeth Ofosu-Ejari, entreated the youth to take active part in this year's celebrations. According to the Minister, Africans both on the continent and in the diaspora share not only a common history, but a common destiny. Eroma Sari has the rest of the story.
As you can deduce from the sub-theme, the 2016 Emancipation Day celebration focuses its attention on the youth, who are our future and I dare say our present. In the spirit of Pan-Africanism, we are entreating all people of African descent, especially the youth, to participate in this year's celebration. Come together and strengthen the bond of solidarity, and remember that unity is vital to our economic, social, and political progress of the people of African descent. The celebration will commence with wreath-laying ceremonies on Thursday, 28th of July, 2016, first at the Boy Memorial Center, then to George Padmore Library, and finally at Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park in Accra. On Friday evening of 29th of July 2016, there will be a variety showcase dubbed Special Emancipation Variety Show at Cape Coast Chapel Square.
Now, away from that, still in the Central Regional Capital, poverty has been identified as the basis on which people give their children away to be used as slaves. Even though stakeholders are doing their best to curtail this menace, the situation still persists. The Omahene of Asin-Jakai and Praso traditional area, Nana Eseku Owudu, has therefore called on parents to make education of their world a priority, since it is through education that can take them out of poverty. He made this call at the launch of this year's Emancipation Day celebrations in Cape Coast.
Whilst we are celebrating the freedom of the slaves in the Caribbean and North America, we should also remember that slavery in several of its forms is still with us. We are still giving our children to go and do very hard work, which we know should not be done. Several of our people are being sent to the water lake to go at night and do all kinds of dangerous activities. All that is part of slavery. We should try and ensure that we stop all those things.
Now, away from the Central Regional Capital to Greater Accra, the Minister for the Interior, Prosper Douglas Bani, has advised the leadership of the Ghana National Fire Service to be transparent and credible in the recruitment of trainees for the National Youth Employment Agency and the National Service. He made this call at the Fire Academy and Training School in Accra. He added that the service must diligently safeguard national assets during the upcoming elections.
I would like to reiterate one more time that given the fact that we are going in recruitment, you will be expected to be as credible in your vetting and selection of service personnel to this other institution. We will be watching, and anyone who dares to corrupt the system will be addressed forcefully. As we approach the election year, we will be calling on officers of the fire service to augment the services of other security agencies to provide absolute security for the whole electoral system.
Now, away from that, as the country prepares for the November elections, the media will be obsessed with the coverage of election-related matters, particularly political campaigns. This assumption has been backed by a media monitoring survey by the National Media Commission. It is in this light that the Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission, George Sapon, has urged media houses also to give the Electoral Commission more coverage since they are marginalized.
The monitoring exercise, which started in May this year, has shown that the media is awash with political discussions. In a pie chart diagram, the NDC topped in terms of media coverage with 45%, followed by MPP with 39%. CPP obtained 4% of media coverage, while the Electoral Commission, PPP, obtained 3% and 2% respectively. The Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission, George Sapon, said the aim of the monitoring exercise was to drill down policies that deserve national attention. He used the occasion to ask media outlets to give more coverage to the Electoral Commission since they are a major stakeholder in the election process.
We need to reconceptualize our coverage of politics to understand that whilst it is good to be fair to the political parties by giving them space, equally important is the Electoral Commission, which is the elections management body. That if we are not very careful, we may think that if MPP said something and we went to NDC for their comment, or then vice versa, then our job is done. What we are drawing attention to is that there are other critical stakeholders in the process who also require some voice and need to be understood. And first on that list is the Electoral Commission. So we need to pay some attention to them.
He bemoaned standards, monitoring and enforcement as the three components of media regulations. Bernard Love, ZTV News, Accra.
Now tuning our attention to some international stories, arrests in Turkey after Friday's coup have risen to around 6,000, with President Erdogan vowing to pay state bodies of the virus that caused it. At a funeral for one of the victims, Mr. Erdogan blamed the US-based Turkish cleric Fethullah Gulen for the plot, a claim which has been denied by Gulen. About 2,700 judges and high-ranking military officers are among those arrested. Some 265 people also died in clashes as the coup failed, many of them being civilians and police loyal to the government. Recep Erdogan said those behind the plot will pay a heavy price, calling the coup a gift from God. He added that this will be a reason to cleanse the Turkish army. He also suggested that Parliament might consider a proposal to restore the death penalty. Thousands of Turks partied on the main squares of key cities to celebrate the failure of the coup. Mr. Erdogan's critics have wondered if he could make use of the latest event as leverage to push harder for a constitutional change. The National Front, French media reports indicate that the Tunisian man Mohamed Louaidji, responsible for the Nice lorry crash, researched the route day before the attack. The report says Mohamed Bouli drove through the seafront promenade area of the French city on Tuesday and Wednesday in preparation. More than 80 people died when he plowed his vehicle into people celebrating Bastille Day. 6 people have now been held in connection with the killing. French judicial sources say an Albanian couple who are yet to be identified have also been arrested. Boulay was shot dead by police when his vehicle, parked along with Promenade des Anglais, was eventually halted. CCTV footage from the days before showed him driving through the area in the lorry, closely observing the scene. France has called up 12,000 police reservists to boost security in the wake of the killings. Now, tension has been high in the U.S. since police shot dead a black man out on Sterling in Baton Road 2 weeks ago. The latest killing involves 3 policemen who were shot in an ex-Marine African-American identified as Gavin Long. The killer is reported to have posted videos complaining about police treatment of African Americans and urging them to fight back. In one of these videos, he stressed that he was not linked to any group but is affiliated with justice. The death of Alton Sterling Philando Castile sparked protests across the United States, triggering a revenge attack by Black Army veteran who shot dead 5 officers in the city of Dallas. Responding to the latest killing, President Obama called on all Americans to unite and refrain from divisive language. Now to some sports news. The Ghana Premier League Week 19 has ended with all matches played at all centers. The match between Midiama Sporting Club and Techiman City has been postponed because of Midiama's engagement in the CAF Confederation Cup, where they played Young Africans in Tanzania. Here are the results of the matches. Now, away from that, the 2016 edition of Street Academy Health Work has been held in Accra with a call on citizenry to curtail giving birth to lots of children in order to control streetism in the country. The work, which was in collaboration with Growing Investment, saw about 300 children walk from Arts Center through to Makola, Rollins Park, Hanson Road, Jamestown, and back to the starting point. The executive director of Street Academy, Atalate, explains the rationale behind the work.
The children feel society has forgotten of them. And I'm telling them, society has not forgotten of them. If they will do and obey what we are telling them, then the sky is their limit. So they should take education very serious. We should curtail birthright. Maybe have 1 or 2 children so that they wouldn't fall victim to what we are seeing these days.
Now, away from Street Academy, Heart of Oak Portuguese coach Sergio Trahu has called on fans of the club to show him some respect after weeks of criticism. The Portuguese coach is yet to convince fans of a better league since taking over as head coach of the Phobians from Kenichi Yatsuhashi. Pressure continues to mount on the coach, with some fans calling on him to lay down his tools. But in a sharp rebuttal, the coach has asked he is shown a little respect because the style of play of his team has improved. And that will be all for Morning Brief today. But before I leave, a recap of our headlines. The Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Madam Elizabeth Ofosuwa-Jare, has asked the youth to take active part in this year's Emancipation Day celebrations. She said Africans shared not only a common history, but a common destiny. Also, the Ghana National Fire Service has been advised to be transparent in the recruitment of trainees into the service. And in Turkey, President Erdogan has vowed to pay state bodies of the virus that caused the failed coup that has risen to around 6,000. Thanks for making time with us. Make a date with us at 1 as we bring you update of reports on our news day here on ZTV. But until then, enjoy the rest of our rides and have a good morning.